Hey guys, I'm Chris Black and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks. And this week, I thought I'd take you on a studio tour with Cardinal Black currently recording our third record. First, a brief musical intermission. So we're currently here at the beautiful Clouds Hill recording studios in Hamburg, Germany. Bit of a bizarre situation. We were offered a couple of shows with the incredible Alter Bridge across Europe recently, but because of the kind of spacing of their tour and the sheer amount of European festivals that they're doing, essentially there was kind of quite extensive periods of prolonged inactivity for us if we were to go out on the road with them in between of their shows. So we looked at the diary and thought, what better to do than record our third record whilst on the road. So we found this incredible studio in Hamburg. As I said, it's called Clouds Hill. And honestly, we've been pretty blessed in terms of where we've been able to record over the years. Rockfield in South Wales, of course, where Bohemian Rhapsody was recorded. Studio 2 in Abbey Road, Power Play in Zurich, all amazing studios. Honestly, this is a strong contender for one of my favourite studios I've ever been in. It's just a brilliant vibe here. It's super relaxed, super chilled, and I don't know, arguably the best equipped studio that I've ever been in. Whichever cupboard you open, whichever door you look behind, this gear of just incredible caliber really is amazing, and scary amounts of money as well, I imagine, if you totted it all up. So I thought I'd take you through a little bit of a studio tour, show you what we've been using, and a brief kind of peek on what the third record may sound like. So speaking of the stuff that doesn't belong to the studio, these are the guitars that I brought with me. There's a couple of additions here that maybe wouldn't ordinarily use live, but you know, kind of come into their own studio. Obviously this one you may be familiar with, if you've seen Friday Fretworks before. This is a Gibson SG Murphy Lab, pale and blue. Great guitar, humbucker, obviously kind of vibrola as well, so anything with a little bit of kind of up and down, as well as humbuckers, that's the go-to. Panucci 54 style non-gold top, black top, whatever you want to call it, 54 style Les Paul with that wrap tail. Beautiful sounding guitar, bit of a kind of backup to the Revstar over the past few days. If the strings need changing, I just can't be bothered to do that, or snap a string mid-take, this is the go-to guitar. Cheers Angelo in the Netherlands for a superb build. This is an interesting one. This actually belonged to my old man. This is a Gretsch Chet Atkins Country Gentleman made in Japan. It's not been used as of yet. My old man was a huge Beatles fan. So there were a couple of guitars in his collection which were very Beatles inspired. This one being a slight kind of upgrade, I guess, on the earlier version. I do believe there was some kind of licensing issue where they couldn't use the name Country Gentleman. And then when they finally were able to reissue the Country Gentleman, obviously you had the kind of mute, kind of flip mutes on there as well. As I said, it's not been used yet, but it is a gorgeous sounding guitar. Next up, on the ones filled with air that I know very little about, it is, of course, my Atkin OM37. Beautiful sounding guitar, just far exceeds my ability as an acoustic player, as evidenced by the fact that a couple of days ago when restringing it, I was incredibly confused as to why, upon restringing it, the action sunk close to the fretboard and was virtually unplayable. Well, no, it was totally unplayable. Sent a video to a good friend of mine who immediately responded, well, the bridge has fallen out of the guitar when you're restringing it. That would be why. So if you needed further evidence of my uselessness with acoustic guitars, that would be it. Of course, Old Faithful, Yamaha Revstar Custom Shop. Couple of miles under the belt, needless to say. Turning green. Probably faring slightly better than me with age, but yeah, you're probably familiar with that one anyway. Probably haven't seen this one in a while. That is my 62 Strat. Not actually used it as of yet, but there's a few guitar overdubs left to be done yet, so it may well come out of the rack at some point. It's just a beautiful guitar. Actually strung with 10s as opposed to the 10.5s that kind of more typical, I guess, for my rig, but just, I don't know, 7.25 radius board. You're kind of needlessly fighting 10.5s if you're kind of struggling with that. onto another Panucci, actually, the only repeat Fender, I guess. It's a 57 style gold top. Superb sounding humbuckers. I'm not sure what Angelo was doing in that workshop of his, but not only making incredible guitars, but beautiful pickups as well. Really cool guitar. That's the kind of other humbucker guitar, I guess, along with the SG. Next up, we have my Parts Caster Jazzmaster, golden aged era body and neck, actually. Home of tone wiring harness and really sharp pickups. And a bridge then, or a trem, I should say, off an old Fender Jaguar, I want to say, from like 1964. There's some numbers carved into that. I've never quite gotten to the bottom of what that is. Best guess is it's probably a Carnet number from the days of pre kind of European Union, and now I guess where everything needed its own Carnet number. Moving on to Telecaster. It's not actually a Fender. Can't remember the name of the guy who built this now, but I bought this second hand. It's just a great sounding double bound Telecaster. Yeah, particularly good sounding guitar. So that's kind of, I don't know, it'd be absolute folly to go into a recording session and not have a Telecaster in your arsenal. They just get a hell of a lot of use. They're just such versatile, great sounding guitars. Speaking of versatile, we have this. You may have seen, I made a video on this a few years ago. It's a PRS McCarty Hollow Body 2. Not a guitar that I kind of gravitate towards live or even imped in the studio particularly, but where this does come into its own. It's obviously got a separate output if you need it. The blend is the one for me, and you can essentially blend in a piezo pickup, which is underneath that bridge. It gives you some really interesting, unique tones, and they're two of the best sounding humbuckers that I've ever played. I think they're the 5708s, but it's just a particularly good sounding guitar. It's kind of 335 territory-ish, I guess. And then last but not least, we have this. Again, a guitar from my old man's collection. I'm not actually sure of the model number of this. It's a Rickenbacker. It's in Fire Glow. This was the kind of another loosely Beatles-inspired guitar that he bought when I was quite young. And yeah, I've never used a Rickenbacker in the studio prior to these sessions, and it's actually been used on 2 tracks now. It's just a magnificent sounding guitar. It does that Rickenbacker thing. I don't know, no other guitar really sounds like a Rickenbacker. So if you're going for that on any track, probably best use a Rickenbacker. That's it in regard to guitars. Quickly swivel around to the amplifiers. A little bit of an amplifier graveyard, if I'm entirely honest. The main amp on the record thus far has been this, which is my 61 Concert that someone very conveniently rehoused in a 62 Super enclosure. So it's a kind of truncated 2x12 version of an otherwise 4x10, 2x10 version, sorry, of an otherwise 4x10 Concert. That was sounding absolutely spectacular and has been used on pretty much the entirety of the record so far until yesterday when we were cranking it up on a track called Saving Grace. And I was in the control room tracking guitars and it made a noise that sounded very expensive. I don't know what it is. My suspicion, my worst fear, I guess, is it's maybe the transformer. Bought this amp a couple of months ago. I'm not even sure what transformer's in it, whether it's the original one, whatever, but that's a job for an amp tech, someone more infinitely qualified than me. When we get home, see what has gone wrong with it. This belongs to the studio and is an absolutely superb sounding amp. It's a Brownface Deluxe. Kind of think of Brownface Deluxes as kind of martially. A lot of that early Billy Gibbons, ZZ Top stuff is Brownface Deluxes. They just sound awesome. They're raunchy, aggressive, biting little amplifiers. So if you're going for that kind of smaller amp kind of rock tone, look no further than the Deluxe. Behind me, we have a Selmer. Now this is a totally new one to me. I have had a little bit of experience with Selmer amplifiers in the past. I've never used this one. I'm loath to tell you what the model is before I get a chance to actually buy one myself and probably drive the value up somewhat. It is a Concorde 8. Do us a favour, let me get one before everyone goes mad and tries to kind of drive their price through the roof. There's currently none available anywhere, apparently, at least in the UK. But that is an absolutely amazing sounding amp. Raunchy and just, I don't know, kind of martially, I guess. Felt like an idealised Marshall, I guess, in some ways. when it was running flat out anyway. Speaking of running flat out, hiding behind there, we've got another Vox. I want to say it's an AC30. My Vox knowledge is woeful. I do apologise. It's a Vox product. It says that much on top. As for the specific model number, I don't know. Someone who knows more about that stuff will have to fill me in there. But again, the Rickenbacker into that amp is just a glorious sounding combination. It's straight away you're in, I don't know, Beatles, Tom Petty kind of territory. It's just magnificent. Since the concert blew up, this has actually turned into the main amp on the session, hence the SM57 and the Royal 121 in front of it. It's my chosen mic combination. I think those two together just sound particularly accurate, I guess, to the sound of the amp in the room. It's just a great combination. But yeah, it's a 68 custom reissue Pro Reverb, single 112, Old Faithful. You can see there it's running on 7 on the volume currently. So that's pretty indicative of what we were up to last night, really cranking it. That, with no pedals in front of it, actually sounded absolutely magnificent. So yeah, honestly, I've made innumerable videos on that amp in the past. Can't say enough good things about it. Last but not least then, there is a little Gibson. I don't know what that is. I've been looking for a model number, and I don't know. I can't find anything. Cool sounding amp, pretty low volume, pretty raunchy, pretty aggressive when you turn the volume over 1. Not actually used it yet. I've kind of demoed it on a few tracks, but not actually committed it to tape as of yet. So where else? What can I show you? Now this is a bit of a state of flux, to be honest. For most part of the week, or the past 11 days that we've been recording here, the setup was myself sat here with my pedal board in front of me, Adam on the drums over there where that upright currently is, Sam on bass over there, and then Tom in the control room singing. But over the past few days we decided to move the drum kit into the ISO booth for a bit of a deader sound. I don't know, 80% of the record is a pretty live, naturally reverberant kind of drum sound, but there are a couple of tracks that we wanted something a little bit more contained, so the drums are now in the ISO booth. Actually, speaking of ISO booths, we'll take you over here a second. This is where my amps have been for the better part of the week when we were tracking live. This is the amp cupboard, or ISO booth, I guess, to give it its proper name. Loads of stuff in here that I've not really had a chance to delve into. This old Laney clip lurking behind a 4x12 over there, which brings back fond memories of mine, which reminds me needs a service. We've got some big old Ampeg cabs. We've got some monstrous orange cabs as well. But yeah, the Royal 121 and the 57 and a pair of BM9s as the room mics were the kind of chosen setup. And we actually ended up keeping a couple of scratched guitar tracks. Such was the kind of the sound of that room. Room's probably stretching it a little bit far, really, isn't it? Upright piano. This is a upright piano, and that's about as much as you're going to get in the way of information from me. Particularly cool. We've got a load of mics on it as well. It's a Deluxe, whatever that says. I don't know. It also says Keller there. Someone who knows more about pianos can tell me more about this. What's been particularly beautiful about this is the felt. So we've got that very soft kind of muted kind of sounds. It's a track we recorded the other night entirely live in the room with Michael playing keys, myself playing acoustic guitar, and Tom singing all live in the room, and it's just absolutely magnificent. There's also a big old Steinway over here. If you want to follow me all the way over here, it's a Steinway grand piano, mic'd with, I don't know, a microphone. I'm not even going to attempt to try and estimate what that is, but again, this is just such a beautiful sounding instrument. It's just... that's the one piano chord I know. Just sounds incredible. Whatever you point a microphone at it. Sounds awesome. We've got a Wurlitzer there. That's had a load of use. That's such a cool sounding instrument. It's instant Billy Preston. And then last but not least in the keys world, if you follow me all the way over here, we've got this. A Hammond SKX. Somewhat unfortunate that we couldn't stretch to get in a real Hammond. The studio ordinarily does actually have a B3, I want to say, but it's being serviced at the moment. So we've been using a digital Hammond that belongs to Michael, our esteemed keys player, into this, a real Leslie that a good friend of mine, Andrew Raymond, was kind enough to loan me, or loan us, I should say, for the studio sessions. It's a 147. Mic'd again with a couple of Telefunkens, a couple of Neumanns, whatever. As I said, everywhere you look in the studio, you're inundated with incredible sounding microphones. So that's made a hell of a difference. We did a bit of kind of VST Leslie stuff on the last record, and Cyril, the producer of that record, essentially told us it didn't sound good enough, so we went to the expense and effort of getting in a Hammond player and micing a real Leslie cabinet, and the difference was night and day. It's just such a dynamic, breathy, organic sound. So yeah, I'm glad we went to the effort of lugging that all the way over from South Wales. Last but not least then, in the live room anyway, we have this. We have the drums. It's a 70s Ludwig. I probably can't give you much more in the way of information than that. We've got a load of mics over the kit. We've got a pair of Coles as the overheads. We've got an SM7 on the snare. We apparently have a 58 underneath one of the toms. Maybe that's a taste mic, I'm not entirely sure. A couple of kick mics. I don't know what they are on the toms. Toms sound particularly good. Adam cymbals as well, Constantinople Ks, I don't know, a Splash as well over there. Not the world's biggest fan of a Splash, if I'm entirely honest, but that is quite a dark sounding Splash, which is, yeah, I will tolerate. I will allow the darker sounding Splash, which incidentally is the name of the next record. That, I'm not entirely sure what's happening here. This was Tom's idea. This is something that he saw on YouTube and wanted to recreate. There's a microphone in the back of that drum pointing at the drum kit. And then, I don't know, run through some kind of interesting preamps, and it's given a very unique sound, shall we say, for better or for worse. That's pretty much all there is to show you in the live room. Let's go on through to the control room and show you the incredible desks that they have in there. Let's go through. So you're in the control room with arguably the studio's piece de resistance, which is truly saying something when I've just shown you all of the gear that they have in there. This is a 1970s Neve. I do know the reference number. Someone has just told me and I've immediately forgotten it. It was commissioned by George Martin, used by John Lennon on Double Fantasy, Time Out of Mind. Bob Dylan was recorded on this desk, as well as innumerable other records over the years, I would imagine. It's truly majestic. Kind of Sam, our bass player and engineer the other day, said something which made me laugh, saying having this desk is essentially like having cheat codes when you're making a record. Whatever you plug into it, it just sounds absolutely spectacular. Pretty much all of the rack gear, outboard gear that you would ever wish to shake a stick at. The 1178 compressor there has been getting a load of use. That's currently labelled as guitar, for the very reason that my guitars are running through that. We've got an LA2A down there, the Teletronics. Again, another legendary compressor. We've got some Pultecs. Pultecs were a pretty new one on me, but it's become a bit of a byword for making anything sound good. Is it running through the Pultecs? No, that's why it doesn't sound good. Put it through the Pultecs. We've got some tape machines and stuff that we're not using. Sorry, the rest of the studio is a little bit of a mess, but we've essentially been living in here for the past 12 days. I haven't seen sunlight. One of the most extensive collections I have ever seen of Watkins copycats. Pretty much any variation you can ever wish to imagine. That's gotta be all of the iterations, surely. I don't know, pretty much any copycat ever made. Very, very cool. We've just fired that up, and then someone's apparently turned it off because that was illuminated a couple of minutes ago. The RE201 Space Echo by Roland. Gonna maybe run some drum stuff through that at some point. The gloriously named Fuckifier. I do like that. Cool sounding preamp, but with more gain than anyone would ever humanly need, I imagine. But more impressively, look at the manual for the Fuckifier. Look at that. As the closing note said, it is written in blood, and made of human skin, which I'm not quite sure whether is a joke. At the back of the desk there, we've got the ubiquitous Ampeg B15. That's the source, as Sam described. That's what kind of the bass is running through. Just makes everything sound absolutely glorious. And then last but not least, we've got pedal boards. No real changes to report there. It's pretty much as it was. A load of stuff tucked in underneath. Got my signature electric Lightning overdrive. HX Stomp XL, been doing a load of heavy lifting on this record, and then running out of there into my little pedal board, which ordinarily sits behind my amps. Not using that for any amp switching on this record, but using the Echofix from Australian company for spring reverb. Just sounds absolutely gorgeous. Mogami cables throughout this 66P bass there. Forgot to point that out. It's just, I don't know, it's hard to overstate how great a studio this is. As I said, wherever you turn, you're just confronted by incredible sounding gear, which is particularly conducive and inspiring to making an amazing sounding record, I hope. Kind of caught us on the hop, if we're entirely honest. We got offered these shows with Alter Bridge and obviously realised that we needed to fill the space in between the recording, or in between the shows rather. So the album was the idea that was kind of launched, but at a point where we didn't really have any songs. So it was a pretty intensive couple of weeks spent writing and kind of really getting to grips with the type of record that we wanted to make. And yeah, coming at the end of it now, there's 1 day left of guitar overdubs. I'm incredibly excited for it. Really excited to see it take shape and just get home, put the final mixes on it now, and yeah, get it released sooner rather than later. I'll sign off now. As ever, thank you very much for watching, and play out with some footage from the Alter Bridge tour. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Chris Buck. This is Fretworks. Please subscribe, hit the bell icon, yada, yada, yada. And I shall see you next time. Have a good one, guys. Take care. See you soon. Awesome, thank you very much, man.